Brexit, unfortunately, is something we will have to deal with at some point, one way or another. So to help us understand this difficult and delicate territory, we have with us today Head of Industrial, Advanced Manufacturing and Services Directorate of the Business, Energy, Industrial Strategy Department, which is now called BEIS, B-E-I-S, BEIS, is that it? So I'd like to introduce Mark Norris, and he'll try and shed some light on this complexing, confusing issue. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. I was at Sleaford on Friday, and I got 10 minutes slot to do my presentation, which was great. And then they said, "Can you cut it to 5 minutes and take 5 minutes of questions as well?" So I had the shortest slot, probably for the largest topic, but it went okay. I thought I'd just start off by telling you that I've been working for BEIS for a couple of months. Prior to that, I was 3 years at DIT, doing kind of investments and trade. So kind of what Charlotte was saying certainly rang a bell with me, and if people want to talk to me about that in the breaks, I'm here all day. Before that, I spent over 20 years in private sector doing international sales and marketing, working for a variety of companies, some SMEs, some much larger organisations. So I have got some experience on what manufacturing is all about, how we get it right, how we get it wrong, how the culture can change from one country to another. So again, if people want to kind of come and grab me in the breaks and have a chat to me about something, very happy to do that. So thank you for having me here today. The other person I'd like to thank is the person who did this presentation, because there are no dates in it whatsoever, which was particularly apt last Friday, the day after we got the Article 50 extension. So I'm from Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and we have a team there called Business Intelligence and Readiness Directorate, which is abbreviated as everything in the government is to BIRD. And you may have heard about the Yellow Hammer Plan in the Sunday papers. So it's one example of UK government being kind of quite joined up. We have a BIRD department and we have a Yellow Hammer Plan. Anyway, what I'm here today is to really kind of talk to you about no deal and what may happen with no deal. So I'm going to share an overview of the 9 areas of business activity that will be affected by no deal. I'll try and give you some idea of 3 of the most important areas. I'll give you some indications on where you can go and some kind of useful websites that will help you to find the relevant information for your own companies. And I'll respond to questions at the end and answer them as best I can. And if I can't answer them, I'll take them away, and I will get back to you with the answers. As I'm a civil servant, I don't do political questions, but I'm very happy to listen to them if you want to fire them at me. So, although we're talking about no deal today, I just want to restate, the government's ambition is to have a deal. That's what they are working towards. The dates have now started to vary, but the plan is for the government to have a no deal. However, as a responsible government, we have to plan for all eventualities, and preparing for no deal is one of the operational priorities of the government as of today. And businesses like yourselves, need to be aware so that you can make an informed decision about how you prepare for the potential of a no-deal Brexit. We know some of the larger companies have got lots of resource. There have been reports of companies that are spending 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million. All the warehousing space in the UK has been used up with people stockpiling. There have been kind of like 10, 20, 50 extra employees just to handle Brexit. I understand that as SMEs, you don't have that kind of resource. Okay? There are a few things that you can do that will take remarkably little effort, but again, this is to make you aware of some of the changes that could be happening. So these are the 9 areas, which have got a lot of information on it. So these are the 9 areas that we think are going to be affected by Brexit. The presentation will be available to share afterwards, so I think Sue will be able to kind of distribute it to everyone, which has all the links to all the things. So I'm just going to focus on three of those areas. So the first one is the kind of importing, exporting and transporting. So currently, as you know, we do not pay duties or tariffs on exports or imports to the EU, and there are also no quotas or any other trade restrictions. Okay. We also benefit from around 40 free trade agreements the EU has signed up with 70 third-party countries around the world, such as Canada, South Korea, and Japan. And to date, you know, the Department for International Trade is, and you'll hear it daily, they are signing more and more trade deals. I think 11% of our current trade is with those 40 free trade agreements. Some of the free trade agreements are for groups of companies. That's why we have 40 agreements, but they work for 70 countries. If we leave without a deal, the UK is going to implement a temporary tariff regime which is going to last for 12 months. And during that period, there will be a much fuller consultation so that if we are still in that position after the end of 12 months, you know, we can adjust those tariffs accordingly. So the tariff regime is aiming to kind of minimise costs to business, to mitigate the price impacts on consumers, and also to support some of the UK producers. Most of the tariffs for the UK imports are going to be at zero, so I think 87% of them would be tariff-free. However, in certain sectors, tariffs have been kind of maintained to kind of support sensitive industries such as agriculture or automotive. So we need to kind of maintain our commitment to those industries. In addition to tariffs, you know, importers will need to complete some extra paperwork. You will need to make customs declarations for goods that are coming into the UK from the EU. So one of the easiest ways to kind of get the information for this is to look on the .gov.uk website. It has a plethora of information. I look at it, it's one of the first things I do every day is to look at it to see what our ministers are doing. One of them resigned last night. His biog was off the website by 9:30 this morning. It was on at 7:30. By 9:30, it was no longer there. But look at .gov.uk. You can sign up to get kind of email alerts for things like tariffs, customs checks, and things like that. The other thing you need to do if you're importing or exporting is to have an economic operator registration and identification number, an EORI number. Again, if you go to .gov.uk, type in EORI, it will come up with a step-by-step guide on how you should apply to get that number. And that number is normally issued kind of almost immediately. It may take up to 48 hours for you to be able to use it. Some people have to do some extra checks on it, but it is really very quick. You also need to decide whether you want to hire an import-export agent to make customs declarations on your behalf. And you also need to check if your goods are eligible for the special customs procedures and the transitional simplified procedures that will allow you to kind of bring your goods into the UK and not have to pay the tariffs immediately at the border. So what is going to happen with that is there's going to be a deferred tariff payment, similar to how you do your VAT returns. You do them quarterly in arrears at the moment. What's going to happen is the first payment for tariffs coming in is going to be due on the 4th of October, and after that it will be monthly in arrears. Okay. So I just reiterate, this is in case of a no-deal Brexit. Okay. Second changes are really on employing EU citizens. Currently, people can move freely from kind of any country and have residence and migration rights for them and their families. In the event of a no deal, EU, EEA and Swiss citizens will need to apply for different schemes depending on how long they want to work and live in the UK. So if they're already resident here, I have got a date in here. I'll have to change that. By 29th of March says, but obviously that's 12th of April now. They can apply for the EU settlement scheme. So the scheme is open in a test phase until March, and then it's still open until the end of December. So people who are here before the exit date, they've got 18 months to kind of apply for different schemes. So if they've got 5 years continuous residence, they can apply for the settled scheme. If they've got less than 5 years, they'll be eligible for a pre-settled status. Okay? And although there's a charge at the moment, the charges will be refunded, and from the 30th of April, when the thing goes kind of live, as opposed to it being in its pilot stage, that will also be kind of fully free. EU, Swiss and EEA citizens will also be free to kind of visit, work or study for up to 3 months without a visa. If they want to stay longer than 3 months, they need to apply for EU temporary leave to remain, and that allows them to stay for an additional 36 months after the 3-month initial stay. Okay. But until 2021, you still need to conduct the same kind of right to work checks using passports or national identity cards. And after 2021, there will be a new immigration system based on points which the Home Office is devising. I probably need to kind of skip on because there's teas and coffees waiting. So more information on this, as I mentioned, on .gov.uk. And we kind of slice and dice it, either by sector or by content. So you can see those are themes that you can click on and have a look at. And those are sectors. So you can click on and have a look at those. What they have on .gov.uk, they have a kind of diagnostic or a triage tool. So you'll go on there, you will be asked 7 questions that you'll get a multiple choice answer to, and at the end of that it will kind of throw up the documents that are most relevant to your business. There's over 120 or 140 documents on there at the moment. I haven't read them all. I don't think anyone has. We don't want you to. We just want you to kind of read the ones that are relevant to you. And if you go through that triage system, that will certainly make your life a lot easier. That's probably all I've got time for, if I'm going to take some questions. So, if someone...
Yes. So, have we got any leading questions? Put your hand up and I... Surely there's one. Okay. Sorry.
Sorry. Hello, hi. My name is Shoaib. I'm a company called James White Drinks. Where do we actually find the tariffs? Are they going to be exactly the same tariffs which are applied at the moment to the third party? Or is there going to be a new list of the tariffs?
There is a list of tariffs. I did download it onto my laptop the other day. I got to kind of aluminium foil, and I didn't realise there were like 3 different thicknesses of aluminium foil, all of which have different tariff rates on them. But yes, there is a spreadsheet that shows you all of the tariff rates. If you go to the .gov.uk and do a search for it, it will be on that website.
I've got a question.
Go on.
As a manufacturer and designer, often the design process starts 2 or 3 years ahead of the final products. So are we going to see this tariff structure be revised after 12 months? Because in my mind, if it is to be, that really puts some challenges to those people who are setting out with new products or new derivatives.
And I think so. I think that there was some the request for information and feedback on the kind of tariff regime that's going to go into place if there's a no deal was not that wide ranging. It was done by DIT. They did do some analysis. One of the gripes I've had off businesses, they weren't asked, that it wasn't collaborative enough. So that's what's going to be happening over the kind of next 12 months, and people will be able to kind of feed in and say, well, this one's going to affect me adversely, and they'll take all of that kind of feedback and advice and try and come up with a tariff schedule that's applicable.
And what's likely to happen with the tariffs for exports, so going into Europe? Are we going to get standard tariffs applied as we enter Europe, and have they been published?
Yes, those are going to be the kind of WTO ones that
Right.
I mean they're the ones we will be like a third party.
Yes, yeah.
So they will be the ones that the EU are already applying to kind of countries outside of the EU until we negotiate a free trade agreement with the EU.
And given that most of this work is done through export-import agents, have we got enough to deal with the flow of goods into Europe, which we now sustain?
I don't have an answer to that one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think obviously one of the main
Sounds like a good business to go into if it all goes belly up.
I've been
on the
looking at
12th
that,
of
thinking
April.
what is the best business? Is it to have a kind of a design registration company based in Luxembourg for all of the companies that need to have their? I'm not sure. I mean, I think one of the things they talk about Dover Calais as being the main route into Europe. The other thing to be aware of on Dover Calais compared to the other ports, all of the other ports around the UK take international take international goods from around the world. So they have systems set up to do EU imports and exports and also rest of world imports and exports. I think the issue that they've had with Dover is because it's 100% EU, they just don't have the kind of infrastructure or the technology or the systems there. Maybe you can help them. To put that software in to kind of process the kind of customs declarations for the EU, which is effectively going to be kind of rest of the world. So that's one of the main issues that they're working on.
Okay, any further questions? We've got time for 2 more.
I will be here for the rest of the day if you want to come and talk to me and ask me some
Yeah,
questions.
please ask. All right, well, we're now going to have a quick break. I think it's about 10 minutes. So, yeah.